Hello everybody and welcome to PhoneDog Live. As usual, I'm glad everyone could be here. I'm Sydney from PhoneDog. If this is your first time, I don't know if we usually get a lot of newcomers. It's usually like the same people. But if this is your first time watching or your first time watching it on YouTube, if you're watching the recording of this, I'm glad you could be here. And so yeah, I'm Sydney from PhoneDog.com, and this is our sort of podcast, kind of visual podcast, because obviously there's visualness to it. And we just discussed the latest news, Android news, Apple news, WebOS news, whatever comes up. And then if you're watching this on Ustream, feel free to join in and leave your thoughts and your comments. I'll be checking from time to time. Also, if you're on Facebook, I'll also be checking those comments on Facebook. And then if you're on YouTube, I'll be checking after I upload the video. I'll also check the comments, so feel free to leave your comments there on YouTube, and I'll be checking that as well. So we have some great topics today, and it's interesting. Before, when I was getting ready to do the broadcast, I was getting all my notes together and looking at topics and doing research to get everything together. I saw all this random stuff about this company, Tabco, and they're apparently running this very, elusive mystery campaign. And they're making a tablet, apparently, Tabco, but they're not really telling anyone about it. They don't say if it's going to be running Android or if it's, what OS it's going to be running, if it's completely new. All they're saying is that the UI is intuitive and just basically amazing is what they're saying. But we really don't know anything about it, and so it's sort of this, weird, interesting thing, and I went to the website. Anyway, so if you've seen anything about that, I am just as confused as you are. I contemplated talking about it during the broadcast, but we kind of had some other things to talk about, so it's not really on the list. But we do have some great topics. If you're on Ustream, you can see at the top there, our first topic of discussion is the Droid 3. It is officially official, finally. We've been waiting for this one for a while, so I'm definitely excited for it to be out. I'm one of the, I don't know if I'm one of the few, but it doesn't seem like there's a lot of people who enjoy having a physical keyboard on their smartphone. At least it seems that way because manufacturers don't make them. There's just not a lot of smartphones out there with a physical keyboard, at least not a lot of Android smartphones. And so the Droid, the original Droid had a terrible keyboard. The Droid 2 was better, and so I have high hopes for the Droid 3. But it's officially official. It's going to be out. It's going to be in stores July 14th. You can already order it online right now. And some people have actually already gotten theirs that ordered it early. And so there's a couple of unboxings from regular Joes flying around the internet. But it's coming to stores July 14th. I don't know when we're going to have our review yet, so don't ask me. So just a quick rundown of the specs on the Droid 3. Let me get a quick picture up for you guys, just in case you live in a cave and you haven't seen it. This is the Droid 3. And so you can see it keeps that same keyboard. Obviously, it's more similar to the Droid 2's keyboard. I think they completely just ditched the original Droid's keyboard. So very similar to the Droid 2, but you can see that front panel kind of has a more curved design to it. And then the buttons have kind of been changed from the original Droid to mirror Motorola's custom, custom buttons for Moto Blur. But anyway, so a quick rundown of the specs. It has a 4-inch QHD display, so it's a resolution of 960 by 540. I hope I won't need a lot of water this broadcast because I know that I think it's kind of a distraction when I drink a lot of water, but already my throat is going crazy. So 4-inch QHD display, a 1 GHz dual-core processor, so, the high-end beast phone, an HDMI out port. It can act as a 3G mobile hotspot, so that's awesome. Ships with Android 2.3 and Moto Blur, which was different from the original Droid, which had stock Android. I think at the time Motorola just hadn't, finished Moto Blur, and so they ended up shipping the original Droid with stock Android. But the Droid 2 and now the Droid 3 has Moto Blur. An 8-megapixel camera that can capture full 1080p HD video, so that's pretty cool. It also has a front-facing camera. You can see, or you saw in the picture, it has a physical QWERTY keyboard. But this is interesting. It's actually the thinnest full-sliding QWERTY keyboard smartphone on the market, I believe. It's only 0.5 inches thick, which is extremely thin. And I think that's even more notable for the Droid in particular because, you know, the original Droid was a very thick and chunky device, and it was one of the things that I always hated about it because it was kind of where Verizon started with the whole, you know, Droid Does campaign, and it really got Android on the map in, you know, as a way of competing with iOS and the iPhone. But the problem was that, you know, yeah, the operating system may be able to compete, but the hardware is like this brick. I mean, you know, iPhone beautiful, Droid ugly. You know, that was one of the things, you know, I always had a problem with that, the original Droid. So it's nice that they're actually working to make it a little thinner, even though it has a physical keyboard. So that's the Droid 3. Been waiting for it for a long time, and you know, it's funny. It kind of just, you know, we've been waiting for it, you know, for so many months, and then, you know, it just kind of debuts, and really, you know, really quietly, no huge campaign, no big announcements. It was just Droid 3 is available. We're like, oh, okay, yeah, it's totally normal. So it's kind of weird. Now, one of the things that may kind of, you know, turn people off from the Droid 3 is that it is going to be shipping with a locked bootloader, apparently. At least that's what we've heard. And so, you know, for developers or hardcore Android fanatics, you know, maybe that would be a turnoff. A locked bootloader means basically that it's going to be a lot more difficult to hack the phone and install custom ROMs, you know, creating and restoring backup images, you know, all that's involved in, you know, really getting to the guts of the device and customizing it. That's going to be a lot more difficult. Now, it's still possible. Developers have created ways to get around, you know, these kind of walls that are blocking them, but it just makes it a little more difficult, and you run a higher risk of bricking your phone. So, you know, people that do that, you know, maybe want to shy away from the Droid 3, but, you know, maybe not because it's still possible. But still going to be a great phone. You know, a dual-core processor, I mean, that's all the rage. I think, you know, it's a little disappointing that it doesn't have 4G capabilities. I think people kind of expect that these days. You know, we have the Bionic that, I guess, whenever it comes out, is going to be a 4G device. The Atrix is 4G. We have the Infuse, the Sensation. You know, pretty much every high-end device that everyone else releases is a 4G phone. I mean, the Sprint had the Evo that has 4G. T-Mobile, the Sensation, that has 4G. I mean, even some of their more mid-range smartphones are shipping, or, you know, have 4G capabilities. So people kind of expect that now. And so for the Droid 3, which was really what started, I mean, this is like the flagship Android device. It's not just, you know, a flagship Verizon device. I mean, this is kind of like a flagship Android device, you know, and a high-end device, dual-core processor, you know, 4-inch, beautiful display, and yet it doesn't have 4G. So that's kind of disappointing. Would it keep me from buying the Droid 3? I don't know. I mean, you know, having experienced 4G, it's awesome. If you haven't experienced it, then I think it's easier to say, well, you know, it's not a big deal. You know, 4G is still new. You know, I can live with 3G, but once you experience 4G speeds, honestly, it's hard to go back to 3G. And I've had a couple of devices, you know, from different networks. I actually had Metro PCS's 4G phone, and even that was amazingly fast. But I had one from Sprint. I had one from T-Mobile, the Sidekick. That was a 4G phone, and it's so fast, and it's just everything's like right there. As soon as you want to load a page, it's ready, or when you want to download an app, it's done in like 5 seconds. And so it's hard to go back to 3G, and I can only imagine after, you know, using 4G and then buying a phone like the Droid 3, high-end device, I'm going to shell out a lot of money for it, $200, and yet it's not a 4G phone, so kind of disappointing. And then, you know, again, if you're a developer, kind of disappointing that it has a locked bootloader. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to see if, you know, I don't think Verizon will have any problem selling it. I mean, I think it will still be an amazing phone. But I guess for those die-hard Android fans, or even for people who follow technology a lot, that know that there's better stuff out there, I think maybe you guys that are watching this broadcast, may be more inclined to just wait for something else because the average consumer might not know about 4G. They obviously don't care about it having a locked bootloader. So they'll buy it because it is still an amazing phone. But I think for us, we know Verizon's just about to get a 4G phone that's going to be just as great except faster, obviously. And so I think people like us would be more inclined to wait. Um, but that's what I think. If you're on Ustream, feel free to leave your comments. I mean, are you going to buy the Droid 3 even though it has a locked bootloader and no 4G? Or are you willing to wait for, who knows when the Droid Bionic is going to come out? And then, again, Moto Blur isn't the most popular UI. I personally don't like Moto Blur, so I don't know. I don't think I'd be inclined to get it. I see no Droid 3 for me. There's a question, what does bootloader mean? I talked about that briefly. We don't really talk about rooting and hacking a phone very much because this is kind of just a broadcast where we talk about the news. But basically, and this is from, we ran an article on PhoneDog, and I'm just going to read it straight from the article because it explains it better than I could. A bootloader is the code that runs before the operating system and tells the phone how to boot and how to find the system kernel. So basically, in order for your phone to start running Android, it needs this bootloader. Now, when the bootloader is unlocked or it's not locked, then you can easily, before the phone starts running, you can get in there and hack it, or you can flash custom ROMs. You can basically do whatever you want, and then the phone will then boot with however you've customized it. Now, with a locked bootloader, it makes that entire process a lot more difficult. It's still possible to hack your phone, but it makes it a lot more difficult. So let me see. I would get the Droid 3 if I had the money. So not everyone's going to care about locked bootloader. That's not to bash the Droid 3. I know I kind of said a lot of negative stuff there. I still think it's going to be a great phone, and not everybody needs 4G. Not everyone is in a 4G market. So if you're not in a 4G market, the Droid 3 is going to be terrific for you. I mean, dual-core processor is going to be super fast. That camera, I mean, full 1080p HD video capture, that's going to be pretty cool too. So July 14th is when it will be in stores. It's already available online, so you can get it now. And it'll be $199 on contract. And I believe that Verizon is going to be running a special where you can buy, if you buy one, you get another one $50 off, if I'm correct. And they're going to be running some sort of special, I believe. Don't quote me on that. So, but it'll be $199 normal retail price when you're on contract, or when you're signing up for a contract. So that's the Droid 3. Now, moving on to topic numero dos. This is sort of something that's been gaining a lot of traction on the internet. Let me change the topic here on Ustream so you guys can keep up. Most of you probably know the website crackberry.com. It's the most popular BlackBerry news website. Very, very loyal to RIM and the BlackBerry brand, and great news coverage. And one of their editors, Kevin, I think he's actually the starter of the site. He came out with this article. It was 10 reasons why Google will buy RIM. And kind of an interesting take on it, because it wasn't 10 reasons why Google should buy RIM. It was just like straight out, he had thought about this, and this is his prediction. Google is going to buy RIM. Now, obviously, he doesn't know for sure. He doesn't have the sources, but to him, it just seemed logical. And so it's kind of like an interesting theory. It's okay. We published a couple of articles, okay, that could make sense, but, maybe it wouldn't work because of this. But it's been getting a lot of traction, and so it's kind of an interesting thing to think about. Everyone knows that RIM is in trouble. They still have a great following. Worldwide shipments and worldwide numbers are still, fantastic. They're still in the top of, OS use worldwide. I mean, obviously Android and iOS, generally have more, but in the US, not really so much, and they're definitely losing ground. I think everybody recognizes that, and so And so, we think, is there going to be a buyout, or are they going to, right now they have like a co-CEO, co-chairman arrangement with, the two guys, and so are they going to be split up, or, what's going to happen? And so this idea of Google buying RIM, I was like, oh, okay, that could work. And he brought out some pretty good points. I'll briefly go over three or four that I thought actually made sense. And again, you guys, feel free to leave your comments. I'll be reading the comments. I just might not actually be able to say anything about them. So his first reason was QNX, which is what the playbook uses. It's based on that, and then future BlackBerry devices will also be based on this QNX. So if Google does buy RIM and then therefore takes ownership of this, it will bring Android improved stability, better security, and he brought out that the playbook hasn't been rooted, which is kind of like an afterthought. I never really considered that, but iPad, iPhone, you can jailbreak those. Every single Google Android tablet has been rooted, but the playbook hasn't. So better security, and then he also brought up ease of rolling out new hardware and so on and so forth. And so to me, I think that the stability and the security, those, okay, that makes sense. Java, he brings out Java is at the heart of Android, and RIM has a lot of people that working for them that know Java. So it'd be like a perfect match. They could only work together and make things better. And then the fourth point that he brought out, which I thought was the one that was probably the biggest one to me, was mobile patents. We know there are lawsuits continuously. It's Samsung is getting sued, HTC. I mean, there's always lawsuits involving Google and Android, and then by extension, any manufacturer that uses Android. I mean, Samsung, that has more to do with their UI. But when you consider that they took stock Android and just tried to make it a little prettier, they didn't have a lot of patents to work with. It's one of Google's weaknesses, and so RIM has tons of patents. Google will automatically, take control of those. And then another thing to point out is that there was recently a Nortel bidding war to acquire some of their patents, and the patents ended up being split up between several different companies, Apple and RIM being, a lot of them, Microsoft, but Google lost the bidding war, so Google didn't get any of those patents. So now if they were to buy RIM, not only would they take control of the patents that RIM already has, but they would also take control of those patents that they were bidding on that they wanted, they didn't get. So that, I think, is a good point. It would probably solve the problem of these lawsuits, coming left and right. And next, again, kind of having to do with Java, and how Android uses Java. RIM has a lot of people that know Java very well. The Astonishing Tribe, which is a company that Google has worked with a lot in the past, RIM owns the Astonishing Tribe, and so if Google buys RIM, they now own the Astonishing Tribe. So again, they'll be able to work together. The second one that I thought was most important, I thought the one about the mobile patents, that was probably the most important. But the second one that Kevin, the guy from Crackberry, brought out, that I thought was also very important to Android, was it would now become an actual enterprise OS. It would be viable for that. I mean, maybe they wouldn't target themselves specifically to that market, but it would at least be possible. I mean, now when people think of Android, it's not business at all. There's just not enough security. It's just not a business or an enterprise operating system. If they buy RIM, I'm sure there's a way they can make that work. So definitely some good points. And it was something that, I had never thought about. I don't know if anyone else had. It seemed kind of random, but once he presented the points, it kind of made sense. So I was like, okay, he thinks Google is going to buy RIM. I don't know if that's going to happen, but if they did, I don't think it would be such a bad thing. Taylor Martin, one of our editors, he published his own kind of take on this and also brought out some good points as to why he didn't really think it was such a good idea. His main one was that basically he doesn't think RIM needs to be bought out just yet. He said RIM isn't finished, give them time. So I mean, maybe that doesn't seem like a concrete, factual reason, but okay, it makes sense. But I thought the biggest one that Taylor brought out was clashing principles, and this goes back to Android not being an enterprise OS. And if they were to buy RIM, now they could at least gain some traction in the enterprise world. But that also comes with some problems. Android was built on the idea that the platform should be easier, user designable, and customizable. If they now bring RIM into the story, then it's going to be more about, being secure, privacy, which is great, but then people who enjoy Android being open, not necessarily so great. So they might have a hard time finding a balance there. And again, this is speculation from, guys from Crackberry, the guy that's just completely devoted to BlackBerry and RIM and wants it to work out so well. Taylor also, he says, used to be a BlackBerry fanatic. So we'll have to see how that plays out, but it's interesting. I see you guys in the comments are talking about laptops, which is fantastic. I'm glad you guys are on topic as usual. Kudos. So that's that. That's the should or will Google buy RIM? My take on it is obviously there are some pluses to it, but I just don't see it happening. I think I'm kind of with Taylor. I think that RIM has a couple of other things they should try before they do that. If you think about like Palm and HP, when HP bought Palm basically had no other options. They had done everything they could do, they just didn't have enough money to keep going, and so they needed someone to just buy them and basically fund the projects more. RIM, I think, still has some more options, and I don't think it's time yet for a buyout, but, I could be wrong about that. At least someone could buy them out tomorrow, so who knows. But it'd be interesting to see if that actually happens. So moving on to our next topic, for all you, for everyone that asks me for new rumors on the iPhone 4S/5, whatever it's going to be called. We have some new rumors, and then we also have some new rumors on the iPad, the next iPad, whatever it's going to be called, the iPad 3, the iPad 2 Plus, the iPad HD, I have no idea. So first of all, iPhone 4S/5 rumors. And we have a couple. And now we've heard basically everything when it comes to the next iPhone. We've heard that it's going to be bigger. We've heard that it's going to be smaller. We've heard that it's going to have a larger display. We've heard it's going to have a smaller display. It's going to be the same design as the iPhone 4. It's going to be the same as the iPod Touch. I mean, we've heard like each end of the spectrum. We've heard it. And I think as we get closer and closer to the launch, we're getting more and more kind of solidified facts. So just this week, the Wall Street Journal reported that the next iPhone will be thinner and lighter, which is, makes sense. I mean, not that far out there. Basically, every time Apple releases a new product, it's thinner and lighter than the one before it. So you're like, okay, that makes sense too. This is my next, also reported that the next iPhone will be thinner and lighter. So, that again kind of coincides with that. But this is interesting. This is my next.com also reported that the physical design of the iPhone 4 was out of favor at the highest levels of the company, and the people there are ready to move on to an entirely new product. So, we had heard before that the next iPhone would have this basically the same design, but now we're kind of getting the idea of, okay, it's going to be completely different. Maybe they don't like the iPhone 4 design, or they're tired of it, or for whatever reason they want something new. These are the guys in the company, not just new consumers. So kind of interesting there. And then, but basically just thinner and lighter. That's the idea that we get from those two sites. And then 9to5Mac, their source, reported to them that Apple is going to be selling two totally distinct iPhones, which kind of coincides with what we'd heard before. We had heard that, okay, the next iPhone is just going to be like a cheaper iPhone. They'll have kind of lesser specs and a lower price tag. And then we heard, no, it's not going to be. It is going to have upgrades. So we heard like these two things. It's going to be cheap. No, it's not going to be. It's going to be upgraded. No, it's going to be downgraded. And so we'd heard these two different stories. So now we're kind of getting the idea of both of those are true, that there is going to be a new iPhone that is going to have upgraded specs, but then they're also going to announce a cheaper iPhone that's going to have kind of lesser specs and that will appeal to the cheap Android market. And so kind of interesting, and I never really believed the whole, cheaper iPhone or the iPhone Nano, people called it. I never really believed that, but again, we're hearing more and more sources say that's what's going to happen. So, and again, their source goes on to say that there will be a cheaper version, and then the other will be a high-end device with an all-new design. And there will be no mistaking these two devices. They'll be completely different designs. So 9to5Mac kind of put together their own theory, and this is just a theory, so don't take this as even a rumor. But they're kind of thinking it'll be like the iPod Touch, maybe even that same form factor, same guts basically, but just maybe up the camera a little bit, and then obviously add the phone capabilities, and you have an iPhone, but that's kind of like a lower end iPhone, and they could sell it for $300 total off contract. That's not even an on contract price. That's just full retail, $300. And then maybe even it'll work on prepaid carriers. So, that's a theory. Again, we don't really know if that's going to happen, but basically what we do know from what the rumors and what the sources are saying, there's going to be two phones. One will be an upgraded version with a new design, and possibly thinner and lighter. And then the second one will be a cheaper version that will have kind of like lesser specs, and it will appeal to like the prepaid market. So that's kind of interesting. And and then also with the iPhone 4S/5, we heard those two names, and we didn't know which one they were going to actually use. The rumor, again, according to the sources, is that the iPhone 5 will be the high-end version that will be completely upgraded, and the 4S will be kind of the cheaper version, which kind of goes along with what we have on the market right now. We have the iPhone 4, which was the completely new version, and the iPhone 3GS is the cheaper version. Now, granted, those came out; those were individual generations. So, with this, they would both be released at the exact same time, but you get kind of the same idea. And this, goes along with what we'd heard before. Tim Cook had an interview with, and I'm not going to pronounce his name right, so I'm just going to say his first name. He's an analyst with Bernstein. His name's Tony. And but anyway, Tim Cook said that Apple was working to figure out the prepaid market, and that Apple didn't want its products to be just for the rich, but for everyone. So kind of lends, some credence to these rumors of a cheaper iPhone. So that's the new rumor of the iPhone 4S, possibly two versions, one being a cheaper version, the other one being kind of this high-end, basically completely redesigned version. We'll have to see, I don't know. But, those are some pretty reliable sites. I mean, Wall Street Journal, obviously, is Wall Street Journal. This Is My Next. They've been, very on par when it comes to rumors. I think a lot of what they predicted about iOS with iMessage, iCloud, a lot of that stuff that no one else even paid attention to, they were spot on. And then 9to5Mac has a pretty good track record. So definitely a possibility. We'll have to wait and see. So moving on to iPad rumors. The iPad, okay, and this is again from This Is My Next. Okay, so this is kind of interesting. We heard that the next iPhone, whatever it's called, or both of them, are going to be released in September at the same time that a new iPad is going to be released. And everyone said, no, that doesn't make any sense because, why would Apple release a new iPad? They just released one. That's not according to their, typical plan. They just didn't think that made sense. So This Is My Next got a tip that kind of clarifies what this new iPad will be like. They're saying that this iPad that's going to be released in September is going to be called the iPad HD, and that it will have a double resolution screen, so 2048 by 1536, which is crazy high. and it will be marketed as a pro device for the higher end market, probably people who work in video and photo production. And it may be released with some version of Final Cut or Aperture. So not necessarily, a consumer device, but more for like people who work in the video fields. It'll be made more for them. It'll have that higher resolution. So it won't necessarily be the iPad 3. It'll just be a new iPad version to go along with the iPad 2. Kind of like, and they brought out the example of the MacBook and the MacBook Pro. Apple Insider and Boy Genius Report are reporting basically the same thing. They have a different source, and their source is saying that it's going to be called the iPad 2 Plus, but it's basically the same rumor that it's going to have a higher resolution display, 250 to 300 pixels per inch, which would take it to that resolution that This Is My Next brought out. And that it would be kind of not a new generation, but just a new version to go on with the iPad 2. So some big rumors there, and I think, really, I think all of these are definitely possible, and really it just clarifies all this crazy stuff that we'd heard in the past. We heard they're going to come out with a new iPad, but we're like, that doesn't make sense. They just came out with one, so now it's like, oh, it's not really a new generation, it's just a different version for a kind of a specific group of people. And the same thing with the iPhone. We're like, they wouldn't release a cheaper version. That doesn't make any sense. We were hearing that it's also going to be completely redesigned. How can they release both of them? Well, they are. It's going to be two different phones. So kind of just clarifying, basically just a mix of rumors that we've been hearing for 6 months that we couldn't make any sense of whatsoever. And now we kind of have a clearer idea of what those rumors actually meant. Now, my question with the iPad HD is, how much is it going to cost? If it's going to be a pro device, a high-end device, the price is definitely going to go up. Would you be willing to buy it, even if you're not in the video and photo production field? Even if you don't do a lot of that, would you buy it just because it's better, the screen's going to be better, or would you not be willing to shell out that money for it? I'm seeing in the comments on Ustream, someone's guessing it's going to be $1,000. I guess that's your prediction for the iPad. Full HD would just make it an iPad 2 with Full HD. They would need over Full HD. Nope, I don't need something like that, because then something like that will be better. Like that. Okay, I didn't understand that one. Nope, too much. iPad is way too much. 7. Okay, so we have some predictions of it being 1,000 and some predictions of it being 800. That's actually kind of what I was thinking. Maybe like 800 to start out, and then go up depending on memory. But interesting. That's the iPad HD, iPad 2 Plus, and the iPhone 4S/5. And speaking of iPhone, actually I have this random picture I wanted to show you guys. And this is not, at least we don't think it's a leaked model, the next iPhone. But this is from this TV show, Covert Affairs, which is just this TV show. And they had this iPhone. I'll just show you the picture. And you can see it has basically no bezel, which is kind of a rumor that we'd been hearing, that the next iPhone would have a thinner bezel due to it having a larger display. And so I guess the guys at this TV show, the producers, decided to create their own little mock-up, and this is what they came up with, kind of a thinner bezel iPhone. Which is kind of interesting. It's sort of funny. Again, I don't think it's from Apple officially, but kind of just their own idea. Apparently they have some Apple fanboys at Covert Affairs. But what I was going to say earlier, talking about iPhone, iOS, the more I use Android and I think about, what people say about it being sort of cartoonish and that it's not organized, it's not as elegant as iOS, and I've always semi-agreed and said, yeah, it's not as elegant, that's for sure. But it's so customizable, and you can have the widgets and organize your icons however you want them to be. But the more I use Android, the more I find it to be exactly what people are saying, kind of sort of a beta version. It still is not very pretty, not very elegant. I'm finding it to be more and more disorganized the more I use it, and so I don't know, maybe it's just because I've been using it for too long and maybe I need something new, but the iPhone is starting to look more and more appealing to me, which I never thought I would say, because I was always like, but I need widgets, but yeah, I realized I really don't use widgets. I mean, I have a clock widget, but I mean, I don't really need that. A weather, I mean, all these widgets that I use, I really don't need them. But I don't know. That's kind of a random side point. iPhone is so boring. Yeah, I guess that could get kind of boring too. I mean, you just have a grid of icons. I haven't decided to get an iPhone. I'm just saying. It seems kind of appealing. But anyway, so that's the iPhone news and the iPad news. Moving on to Android, I had someone ask me, please, enough of the iPhone, let's talk about Android. Our next topic is actually Android, so you'll be happy. I like to keep it even. The Droid Bionic, finally, we're getting a feeling that the release is closer. I mean, this is by no means a release date or anything solid at all, but it seems like the Bionic is finally getting to a point where it's going to come out. This is a leaked Best Buy ad. As you can see, it has the Bionic on it. Control it, and you control everything. So it's basically just a coming soon poster, the Droid Bionic, just a refresh. And this is it, but it kind of tells us, okay, so maybe the release is imminent because this is the redesigned hardware. This isn't the old Droid Bionic, this is with the new hardware. So, this could be something that's coming out within, I don't know, maybe a month. Who knows, but I know a lot of people have been waiting for the Droid Bionic, and it is going to be a killer device. I was talking about earlier the Droid 3 and how it doesn't have 4G and how that's kind of a disappointment. And I think, like I was saying, it'd be more worth it to wait for the Droid Bionic because it is going to have 4G. Just a quick rundown of the specs of the Droid Bionic. And these may have changed because we're not entirely sure, what Motorola decided to, refresh. We heard it's going to have an updated UI, still Moto Blur, but kind of tweaked a little bit. A dual-core processor, 1 GHz dual-core processor. Now, we originally heard it was going to have a Tegra 2 processor, but then we heard it was going to be changed to a TI OMAP processor, Texas Instruments. So that may have been changed, but still a dual-core processor. Now, with a screen, we originally heard it was going to be 4.3 inches. Then we heard it could be 4.5 inches, so somewhere in there. But it is going to be a QHD display, an 8-megapixel camera with a dual LED flash, 720p video capture, a front-facing camera, Android 2.3, we're guessing, again with Moto Blur, and then 4G LTE. So definitely exciting, and I think the Bionic may take over the spot as the best phone on Verizon when it finally comes out. Again, like I said, this is no solid release date, but at least it's something to tell us that we're sort of close. The only problem I have with the Droid Bionic is Moto Blur. And I say this basically every time I talk about a phone that has Moto Blur, and maybe it gets redundant. But I don't really like Moto Blur. I can't stand it, and I think the new version that's more toned down is definitely better, but it still has the same widgets, and I don't like those. And I know I can download my own, but I don't know, just something about Moto Blur I don't like. And of course, I can download my own, Launcher Pro or whatever I want to. But so I don't know if I'll go for the Droid Bionic, also because I'm not on Verizon. But if you want to, I think it'd definitely be, one of the best phones out there when it comes out. Definitely able to compete with the Sensation, and the G2X and the Evo 3D, which I think are the top 3 Android phones out there right now. I think the Sensation may be my personal favorite, or the Galaxy S2 may be my personal favorite, but the Droid Bionic is definitely going to be able to compete. Now, I want to ask you guys on Ustream, do you like Moto Blur? You look at the Bionic, and it's going to be an awesome phone, a dual-core processor, beautiful display, awesome camera, 4G, but does Moto Blur kind of turn you off? Do you really, really want it? Are you going to get it? Or is Moto Blur a turn off? Okay, I'm seeing no, no, yes, nope, no, yes. I hate Moto Blur, yes, no. I hate it, nope, yes, yes, no, yes. I love you. Thank you. That was random. Okay, so it was about 50-50. I'm seeing yes and I'm seeing no. It seems like most of the people that aren't buying it are going to not buy it because of modal blur. And wow, Matthew, no, 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 a million times. So I guess people either love it or hate it, and that's modal blur. And so Sydney blur, okay. So yeah, I probably wouldn't buy it because of moto blur, and it seems like half of you guys agree with me, and then the other half apparently like moto blur. So that'll be exciting. I don't know if we have a price yet for the Bionic. Let me see. Droid Bionic, 149. I have a feeling that price is not gonna stay. Since it's a 4G phone, I'm thinking it may be closer to 249. Um, and then the last rumored release date we had was August 4th. So, we've been waiting for this phone ever since CES of last year. So it's been forever. I mean, the Atrix, which was the AT&T version of the Bionic, that came out, months ago. And so, we were kind of expecting them to come out at the same time because they're basically the same exact phone. But then the Atrix came out and no Bionic, and now finally, months later, we're finally, getting some hopes of seeing the Bionic. So we've waited plenty long. I'm excited, but like I said, moto blur is a turnoff for me. I don't think I'll buy it. So that was the last topic. I have a couple of extras that I do want to talk about, and then we'll get to the open Q&A. I know you guys like that section where you can ask any question you want. Before we get on to that, just a couple of extras. Some new rumors and news that I wanted to talk about, because this is actually pretty exciting. We have some new Android distribution numbers, and I'll show them to you really quick. We might not have time to talk about them very much, but you can see here new Android distribution numbers, and as you can see, fragmentation is still alive, but at least, we have 2.3 is gaining some ground. 2.2 obviously has the majority. You can see that big chunk on the left. It's 2.2. So, and then, then we have all these different versions of 2.3.2 and 2.3.3 and 2.3.4, and that's divided between like 1% and 2%. So hopefully that gets sorted out quickly. To me, this doesn't really solve my fears that of fragmentation. It seems like fragmentation is still a problem, but at least we got some new numbers. But moving on to the news that I wanted to talk about, we have, and this is pretty solidified, new Virgin Mobile plan prices. And I think prepaid is really gaining some ground. I don't know if you guys want to comment how many of you are on prepaid carriers, but I know a lot of people that are on a prepaid carrier, and so Virgin Mobile is going to be getting some new plans. Virgin Mobile had like the best deal out there for prepaid prices. It was $25 a month for unlimited data, texting, and then you get 300 minutes. It was just an awesome deal. You could for I think $60 a month for unlimited everything. Anyway, so now starting July 19th, they are going up, but not too much. It's going to be $35 a month for unlimited web and text and 300 minutes. So it went from 25 to 35. Kind of $10. Not too much. You consider the competition, still a great deal. $45 a month for again unlimited web and text, and then 1,200 minutes. And I believe this might be a typo. I believe the unlimited everything is dropping down to $55 a month. So still some great deals. And then, I think this may just be coming from the fact that prepaid carriers are gaining traction, and Virgin Mobile, may be gaining some new customers. They're coming out with a new phone, the Motorola Triumph. It's a high-end phone. And so they may be thinking they kind of have the right to kind of up their prices a little bit. And I think they definitely do, because $25 was like dirt cheap. And so $35 is still cheap, and I think very reasonable. So I just wanted to pass that along to you. And I don't know, will you guys, is this too much for you? Certainly I wouldn't think so. But, maybe it is. I don't know. Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments, and again on YouTube. Hi from Finland. Hello from Texas. How are you doing in Finland? Finland. I've never been to Finland. Sydney, do Skype call-ins. I've thought of it, but we decided not to. We talked about it, Aaron and I, and we decided not to do it. So anyway, so that was the last. Those were the extras, and it is 4:45 on the dot. So we have 15 minutes for an open Q&A. So this is the time when you guys can ask any question that's been lingering on your hearts and minds. You can ask, and I'll try to answer them. Obviously, I don't know everything, but I do know a lot. I have a cheat sheet actually, so I have a list of basically every rumored phone that's supposed to come out from now until next year. So, okay, and I will be on Facebook. If you think I've been neglecting Facebook, I'm there, so I will be checking it every couple of minutes. Okay, hi from the Pacific Ocean. Wow, just from the ocean, randomly on the water. That's awesome. Are you single? No, I'm married. Droid Charge Android 2.3. Do you want a release date? Is that what you want? We might not have that. No, I don't have a release date for that yet. Sorry. Sydney, is TouchWiz still your favorite UI, or has it changed? TouchWiz is still my favorite UI. Yes. Do you think this would be a bad time to buy an iPad 2? Well, you know, considering the rumor that we just heard that this new iPad coming out in September isn't necessarily a new generation, it's just kind of an upgrade for the high-end market, you know, it might not be a bad time. I would maybe wait just to make sure, but, you know, really just taking those rumors into consideration, I don't think it'd be a bad time. Do you guys at PhoneDog do anything with Google+? I don't have a Google+ account just because it's just too many social networks. Wow, I'm way behind. Let me catch up to you guys. I'm way behind. I don't have a network just because it's too many social networks, but I'm sure Aaron and Taylor, they probably do. You can check them out. Okay, ads keep popping up. I'm sorry. Do you know July 1st was GSM-B Day? She's only 20 years old. Yeah, I do. I remember reading articles on that. I'm glad to say that I've got Motorola without Moto Blur, and I like it a lot. Good. Congratulations. What phone do you use? I get asked that a lot, and I say the same thing every time. It just depends on what phone I'm reviewing at the moment. I do have a personal phone, but I also change phones a lot just because, that's what I do. I do cell phone reviews, so I have a different phone all the time. Will the Droid Charge get TouchWiz 4? That's a good question. I thought it shipped with TouchWiz version 4, but I guess not. Maybe I'm thinking of another phone. I don't know about that. I really don't know. I'm sorry. Thoughts on LG Optimus Black for USA? That's awesome and completely random. I wasn't really expecting it at all, but apparently, and here's the rumor, the Optimus Black is going to be coming to US Cellular, Sprint, Altel, and Virgin Mobile of all carriers. So kind of interesting. And honestly, I always kind of looked to the Optimus Black. I always kind of wanted it, but we never really had hopes of it coming to the US. But now, apparently it is. It has a 4-inch Nova display, so it's just, beautiful. 5-megapixel camera with an LED flash and a front-facing camera. TI OMAP 3 1 GHz processor. Super thin. I think for me, the real turn was it being super thin and also the beautiful display. I'm a sucker for that. I love Super AMOLED Plus displays. I love that. Any word on Droid 2 Global 2.3? Let me see. Droid 2, no, I don't have anything on that. I'm sorry. Inspire update if Desire gets it almost identical phones. Inspire. I don't have anything on the Inspire. I'm sorry. If the Bionic has an unlocked bootloader, would you put TouchWiz 4.0 on it? That's a good question. I'm really not into rooting and hacking and modding and doing all of that. I think maybe I'm just always afraid that I'm going to break my phone, even though I know it's so easy. But I don't know. I'm not really that kind of person. So would I do that? No, probably not. Since I'm not on Verizon, I would just not go to Verizon and just buy a phone that is a TouchWiz device. If you could make a phone, what would its name be? Who would make it? What software? What hardware? Any skins? Maybe custom. You know, that's funny because I get asked that a lot, and I don't know why. Because, and this, I don't mean to be rude, but it seems like a completely pointless question because I'm never going to create a phone. So, I don't know. I guess it would run Android with TouchWiz. Um, it would be made by HTC. Um, what would it be called? I don't know. Um, okay, why is the Droid 3 3G? It's just what they decided to do. We talked about that earlier when we talked about the Droid 3. I'm not sure why they decided to do that. I'm going to check Facebook really quick to see if I've missed any questions. Okay, any news on the Atrix 2.3 update? Let me see. No, I don't have anything on that, sorry. Will the Droid charge? Oh, okay, I just had that question. Any update on the G2? I think we heard that the 2.3 update was coming soon, but that was a couple weeks ago and we haven't heard anything since then, so I don't know. Okay. You rock, thank you. Do you know if Metro PCS will be rolling out any more 4G phones? No, Metro PCS just got 2 new phones. They weren't 4G phones, but we haven't heard anything about new 4G phones, so. iPhone Incredible 2 or a 4G smartphone? If you can get a 4G phone, like I said earlier, 4G, it's like, once you experience it, it's hard to go back to 3G. So, you know, it depends on the 4G phone, obviously. It depends on which one you're talking about. But I would take 4G over the Incredible 2 and the iPhone. So now between the Incredible 2 and the iPhone, really, they're both, you know, excuse me, I'm sorry, you know, really they're both very comparable. I mean, it really just depends on if you like Android or iOS. I mean, 1 gigahertz processor on both of them, beautiful display on both of them. The Incredible 2 has a larger display, so you maybe take that into consideration. But really, I think that's really just the main difference. You know, is do you want Android or do you want iOS? And I can't answer that for you. I mean, that's just personal opinion. Samsung Epic Gingerbread. I've been asked that so many times. I don't think we have any updates on it. There's unofficial updates floating around everywhere. We heard the official update could be coming in July, but I don't have anything beyond that. Let me make sure okay. Samsung Galaxy S2 going to Verizon, that's what we've heard. Have you guys ever considered renaming PhoneDog to PhoneCat? No. What's the difference between WiMAX and LTE? It's just different technologies. I actually made a video on it. You can watch it. If you go to PhoneDog.com, you can search PhoneDog 101 4G. It's different technologies. LTE stands for long-term evolution. It's based on it follows the GSM line. So you have HSPA, HSPA Plus, and then LTE. WiMAX is very similar to Wi-Fi, you know, same name, WiMAX, Wi-Fi. So it's different technologies based on different technologies, and that's the difference. There's differences also in speeds, performance. You know, WiMAX sometimes has a hard time when there's a lot of interference in terms of like buildings, and then speeds, I believe LTE is faster. But you can check out that video that I did. It kind of explained it a little more. iOS versus Android. LG Optimus V update for 2.3. No, and if any of you guys were, just for everyone that's watching, we heard this really small rumor that the Optimus 1 was going to get 2.3, and that was so long ago, and we haven't heard anything since then, and it was only on the Optimus 1. It wasn't even on the Optimus V and M and T and S and all that. So I don't have anything on the Optimus V or the Optimus M. I'm trying to say this in a nice way. When we know, we'll publish it. So I get asked that a million times a day, but no, I don't have anything new on that. Will there be 2.3 update for the Optimus? Oh gosh, okay. Any good phones going to Verizon by the end of July? End of July. Let me check. Let me see. This might pop up over there. Yeah, it did. Bring it over here. Verizon. Okay, so for Verizon, End of July. Bionic, possibly, but don't count on it. Let me see. I'm going through my list. We've heard that the Samsung Galaxy S2 could come to Verizon this month, but that's, again, don't count on it. It's kind of a shady rumor. And then no new phones coming to Verizon by the end of this month, at least not that we know of for sure. Do you know when Swipe will be on iPhone? I doubt it will ever be on the iPhone. Which do you like better, iOS or Android? I personally prefer Android, although I'm starting to get tired of it. Do you enjoy doing these broadcasts? Of course. Let me check Facebook really quick and see if there's any more new questions. I never understood why Moto Blur is so bad. Can you explain? Well, the original version of Moto Blur, it was just very in your face. It was, so many widgets. Once you got a Moto Blur account, it was just notifications constantly. You couldn't turn them off. Some of them you could, some of them you couldn't. It was just very obtrusive, and it was just too much. It was just in your face. There's too much going on at the same time, and very poorly designed visually too. I think not just in the way that it kind of crowded you, but just visually, the colors, the icons. It's just very poorly designed. Now the new version of Moto Blur, it's less obtrusive. But still, to me, the design elements, I still don't like. It's still what turns me off. The icons, the widgets. So, does LG use a custom UI? Do you like it? Yes, LG has a custom UI, and yeah, I like it. It's, the new version that we see on the Revolution and those phones. I don't like it very much. I like TouchWiz better, but it's okay. What's the J after ice cream sandwich? I'm not sure. I've never seen a J after ice cream sandwich. Does the Galaxy S2 have a 4.3-inch display? I believe so. Let me just make sure. Or it might have been a 4.4. Oh yeah, it's a 4.3-inch Super AMOLED Plus display. Is Sprint going to change to LTE 4G? I heard they were talking about it. They were talking about it, and they were trying to decide between continuing with WiMAX or switching to LTE. Apparently, for the time being, they decided to stick with WiMAX, but we'll have to see what they decide to do in the future. Any phones coming to AT&T by the end of the month? Okay, let me go through the list. AT&T. Oh wait, what was that? Salsa, the status is coming to AT&T. That was known as the Cha-Cha overseas. We heard that the Optimus 3D, which will be known as the Optimus Thrill, we heard that could come to AT&T this month. And then that's it, I believe. Yeah, that's it. Okay. Where are all the Samsung Galaxy S2s for the US? Is Apple trying to stop phone from coming out, or is it going to drop? We actually heard that the carriers were stalling picking up the Galaxy S2 because there were so many other phones that were just as good. T-Mobile has the Sensation with the dual-core processor and the G2X. Verizon has the Bionic coming up, the Droid 3. The Droid X2, Sprint has the Evo 3D. So we heard that the carriers were like, well, we already have all these other phones. We don't really need the Galaxy S2. So we heard that the carriers were kind of stalling the release, but who knows if that's true. So where are they? I don't know. We'll just have to wait. If you were on Verizon between the Bionic, Galaxy S2, and iPhone 5, which one is worth waiting for the most? The iPhone, well, if you're talking about the iPhone 5 coming out this September, I always say it's worth it to wait for the iPhone because, Android, we know what to expect. The Galaxy S2, we know exactly what it's going to be like, but we don't really know what Apple's going to do with the iPhone, and it could be something that makes it worth it to, to switch to the iPhone. So I would wait for that and just wait and then make your decision at that point. How did you get your job at PhoneDog? It's a long story. You know what? I just realized it's 4:59. We only have a minute left.
It's 5 o'clock.
And now it's 5 o'clock. So I'm sorry the time just passed just like that. I'm sorry if I missed any questions. I know there were a lot that I missed. But you can, if you missed any of the broadcast too, you can watch it on YouTube. I'll be uploading the video. If you are watching this on YouTube, thanks for watching. Feel free to leave your comments and I'll be checking those. But if you try to ask me a question and I missed it, you can follow me on Twitter. My screen name is It's My Job to Know, and you can ask me and I'll try to answer it as soon as I can. Or you can just go to the video when I upload it to YouTube and leave your question there, and then I'll be checking those. But I'll be back next week, same time, same place, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, on our Ustream channel, on our Facebook page, and then you can catch it on YouTube and watch it whenever you want to. So thank you so much, guys, for watching. Again, be sure and check out PhoneDog.com for the latest news and for anything that I missed and for more news, updates, and reviews. But I'm Sydney. Get ready for the abrupt ending, all you guys on Ustream, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.